The Chupacabra Sightings. I never believed in monsters. Growing up in a small town in Texas, nestled between dusty roads and sprawling fields, the only creatures that haunted my childhood were the usual: snakes, coyotes, and the occasional raccoon rummaging through the garbage bins. But that all changed in the summer of 1995 when the stories started to spread, stories about a creature so bizarre that it felt like something out of a nightmare. They called it the Chupacabra. I remember it vividly, the sweltering heat of the Texan sun beating down on my back as I rode my bike to the local convenience store. The air was thick with the smell of dry grass and the distant sound of cicadas buzzing in the trees. It was a typical day until I overheard a conversation between two farmers standing outside the store. "Did you hear about the goats?" one of them asked, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Yeah, they found them drained of blood," the other replied, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. "They say it's the Chupacabra." I stopped my bike, intrigued. I had heard the name whispered before, but I had never taken it seriously. The Chupacabra was a legend, a myth to scare children and keep them indoors after dark. But as I listened to the farmers talk, I felt a creeping unease settle in my stomach. What if there was some truth to these tales? That night, I lay in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of the strange creature. I couldn't shake the image of it from my mind, a small, scaly beast with glowing red eyes and sharp fangs. I had to know more. The next day, I decided to investigate. I started by talking to my friends at school. They were just as fascinated as I was, and soon we formed a small group, determined to uncover the truth behind the Chupacabra sightings. We spent afternoons scouring the internet for information, reading articles and watching grainy videos of supposed Chupacabra encounters. The more we learned, the more terrified we became. One evening, as we sat in my backyard, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple, I suggested we go out into the fields to see if we could find any signs of the creature. "Maybe we can catch a glimpse of it," I said, my heart racing with excitement. "Are you crazy?" my best friend Jake replied, his eyes wide. "What if it's real?" "Exactly. If it's real, we need to see it for ourselves," I insisted, trying to sound braver than I felt. After much debate, the group agreed. We gathered flashlights, snacks, and a camera, eager to document our findings. That night, we sneaked out of our houses and met at the edge of the fields, the moon casting an eerie glow over the landscape. As we made our way into the dark, the sounds of the night enveloped us: rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the crunch of twigs underfoot. Our nerves were palpable, and each snap of a branch sent shivers down my spine. But I pressed forward, fueled by a mix of fear and excitement. We reached a clearing surrounded by tall grass, and I felt a surge of anticipation. "This is where the goats were found," I whispered, pointing to a nearby farmhouse. "Let's split up and see if we can find anything." Reluctantly, we divided into pairs and started to explore the area. Jake and I wandered toward the barn, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was thick with the scent of hay and something else, something metallic and sharp. My heart raced as I scanned the shadows, half expecting to see the Chupacabra lurking just out of sight. "Do you really think it could be here?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling a mix of dread and exhilaration. "But we have to find out." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the barn. We froze, our eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know." "Let's check it out," I said, my curiosity outweighing my fear. We crept toward the sound, our flashlights flickering as we moved deeper into the barn. The air was thick with dust, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. As we rounded a corner, we stumbled upon a group of goats, their eyes wide with terror. They were huddled together, bleating softly. "Look," I whispered, pointing to a shadow lurking in the corner of the barn. It was a small creature, its eyes glowing red in the darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I realized we weren't alone. "Is that it?" Jake asked, his voice barely audible. I nodded, my heart racing. The creature was unlike anything I had ever seen, with scaly skin and sharp teeth glistening in the dim light. It crouched low to the ground, its eyes fixed on us, and I felt a surge of panic. "Run!" I shouted, and we bolted back toward the entrance of the barn, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We burst into the open air, gasping for breath, and didn't stop until we reached the safety of the tree line. "What the hell was that?" Jake exclaimed, his voice shaking. "I don't know, but we need to tell the others," I replied, my mind racing. We hurried back to the clearing where we had left the others, and I could see their faces lit with worry. "We saw it. We saw the Chupacabra," I shouted, breathless. "You're kidding," one of my friends, Sarah, exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "What did it look like?" "It was small and scaly, with red eyes and sharp teeth," I described, still feeling the adrenaline pumping through me. "It was right there in the barn." The excitement in the air shifted to unease as we realized the gravity of what we had encountered. If the Chupacabra was real, what did that mean for our town? Over the next few days, the story spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about the Chupacabra sightings, and soon reports of strange livestock deaths began to surface. Farmers were on high alert, and the local news picked up the story, sending reporters to interview residents about their encounters. I felt a mix of pride and fear, pride that we had been part of the discovery, but fear of what it meant. As the sightings continued, we found ourselves drawn deeper into the mystery. We began to investigate the reports, visiting farms that had lost livestock and interviewing the owners. Some described the creature as a small dog-like beast with a slender body, while others insisted it was more reptilian in appearance. Each account was different, but one thing remained constant: the fear that gripped the community. One evening, we decided to venture back to the barn, emboldened by our previous encounter. The air was thick with tension as we made our way back, the moonlight casting long shadows across the ground. This time we brought a video camera, determined to document our findings. As we approached the barn, I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" Jake asked, his voice wavering. "We have to," I insisted. "If we can capture evidence, it'll help us prove it's real." We stepped inside, the creaking of the barn door echoing in the stillness. With the camera rolling, we began to explore the dark corners of the barn, our flashlights illuminating the dust and cobwebs. I can't explain why I felt compelled to do it, but I needed to confront my fear. "Let's check the back where we saw it last time," I suggested, my heart racing. As we crept toward the rear of the barn, I could hear the faint sound of rustling. My breath quickened as we turned the corner, and once again there it was, the Chupacabra. This time it was closer, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I felt paralyzed with fear, unable to move as it stared back at us. The camera trembled in my hands as I fought to keep it steady. "Get out of here," Jake hissed, tugging at my arm. But I couldn't tear my gaze away. The creature was unlike anything I had ever seen, its scaly skin shimmering in the darkness. It let out a low growl, and I felt a rush of fear wash over me. Without thinking, I raised the camera and began to record. I knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I had to document it. Just as I pressed the button, the creature lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. We turned and ran, the camera swinging wildly as we dashed toward the exit. We burst out of the barn, gasping for breath, and didn't stop until we reached the safety of the trees. Once we were far enough away, we collapsed on the ground, our hearts pounding in our chests. "Did we get it?" Jake asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I think so," I replied, still trembling. "I can't believe we actually saw it again. We had captured something real, something that could prove the existence of the Chupacabra." The adrenaline coursed through us as we hurried home, eager to review the footage. Later that night, we gathered in my living room, the video camera plugged into the television. As we watched the footage, our excitement quickly turned to horror. The recording was shaky and dark, but there was no mistaking the creature's outline. Its eyes glowed with an intensity that sent chills down my spine, and when it lunged, a sense of dread washed over me. "What do we do with this?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "We have to show it to the news," I said, my heart racing. "This could change everything." The next day we made our way to the local news station, our hearts pounding with anticipation. As we entered, the receptionist eyed us curiously. "Can I help you?" she asked. "We have footage of the Chupacabra," I blurted out, my voice filled with urgency. "You have to see it." After some convincing, we were ushered into a conference room where a producer listened to our story. As we showed him the footage, I could see skepticism in his eyes, but as the creature lunged on screen, his expression shifted. "This is interesting," he said slowly, leaning closer. "We'll need to verify it, but if it checks out, we could put this on the air." Over the next few days, anticipation hung in the air. The producer contacted local experts and analyzed the footage, while news of our encounter spread throughout the community. The excitement was palpable, but so was the fear. People were terrified, unsure of what the Chupacabra might mean for their safety. Finally, the day arrived when our footage aired on the local news. As the segment played, I watched as the reporter described the sightings, the fear gripping the community, and our encounter with the creature. My heart raced as I heard my own voice narrating the experience, and I felt a sense of pride swell within me. But as the story gained traction, so did the panic. Farmers reported more livestock deaths, and sightings of the Chupacabra surged. It was as if our footage had awakened something that had been lying dormant, and the creature became the talk of the town. I remember one night, sitting in my room, the glow of my bedside lamp casting long shadows across the walls. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with thoughts of the creature. What if it attacked someone? What if it was more dangerous than we realized? My phone buzzed and I picked it up to see a message from Jake. "You won't believe this. Meet me at the barn." Curiosity and fear mingled in my stomach as I grabbed my flashlight and headed out into the night. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. As I approached the barn, I could see Jake waiting for me, his face pale and anxious. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart racing. "I heard something," he said, his voice shaking. "Something in the barn." We stepped inside, the air thick with tension. I could hear the faint sound of rustling, and my heart raced as we crept deeper into the shadows. As we approached the back of the barn, I felt a chill run down my spine. There it was again, the unmistakable sound of movement. Suddenly, the creature lunged out of the darkness, and we bolted back toward the entrance. "Run!" I shouted, my voice filled with terror. We burst out into the moonlight, gasping for breath as we stumbled away from the barn. The adrenaline surged through me and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "What the hell was that?" Jake exclaimed, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we have to warn everyone," I said breathlessly. We raced back to town, determined to alert the community. The Chupacabra was real, and it was no longer just a story. As we shared our experience, the panic in the air grew thicker. People were terrified, locking their doors and keeping their animals close. But amidst the fear, there was also a strange fascination. The Chupacabra had become a local legend, a creature that captivated our imaginations. I couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility. We had uncovered something that had shaken our town to its core, and I knew we had to get to the bottom of it. Days turned into weeks as the sightings continued. We formed a group of amateur investigators, determined to learn everything we could about the Chupacabra. Armed with cameras and flashlights, we scoured the fields, hoping to capture evidence of the creature. But as the weeks went by, the excitement began to wane. Reports of sightings dwindled, and the panic that had gripped our town slowly faded. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had missed something important, that the Chupacabra was still out there, lurking in the shadows. One night as I lay in bed, I had a strange dream. I found myself standing in the barn, the air thick with tension. I could hear the faint sound of rustling, and as I turned to look, I saw the Chupacabra standing before me, its eyes glowing in the darkness. I woke up with a start, my heart racing. The dream felt so real, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning. I had to go back to the barn. The next evening, I gathered my friends and headed out into the fields once more. As we approached the barn, a sense of dread washed over me, but I pressed on. We stepped inside, the air heavy with anticipation. "Do you really think it'll be here?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but we have to find out," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. As we explored the dark corners of the barn, I felt a strange energy in the air. The shadows seemed to shift, and I could hear the faint sound of breathing. Suddenly, the creature lunged from the darkness, and panic surged through me. It was closer this time, its eyes glowing with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. We turned and ran, but as I glanced back, I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a strange symbol carved into the wall. "What was that?" Jake shouted, his voice filled with panic. "I don't know," I replied, my heart racing. "But we need to get out of here." We burst out into the night, gasping for breath as we stumbled away from the barn. I could feel a weight pressing down on my chest, and I knew we had to uncover the truth behind the Chupacabra. The next day I couldn't stop thinking about the symbol. I began researching local folklore and ancient legends, hoping to find a connection. I discovered that the Chupacabra was often linked to ancient myths about creatures that preyed on livestock, draining their blood for sustenance. As I delved deeper, I found references to rituals and symbols used to ward off such creatures. It felt like a thread connecting the past to our present, an explanation for the fear that had gripped our community. With newfound determination, I gathered my friends once more and shared my findings. "We have to confront this thing," I said, my voice steady. "We can't let it terrorize our town any longer." We devised a plan to return to the barn, armed not only with flashlights but also with knowledge. We would document the symbol and attempt to understand its significance. As we approached the barn, the air was thick with tension, but I felt a sense of purpose. We stepped inside, the darkness enveloping us, and I could feel my heart racing. As we reached the back of the barn, we found the symbol etched into the wall once more, and I felt a sense of recognition wash over me. "This is it," I whispered, my voice filled with awe. "This is what we need to confront." As we gathered around the symbol, the air shifted, and I felt a presence behind us. The Chupacabra emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. But this time I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. "This is our chance," I whispered to my friends, my heart racing. "We have to face it." With that, I stepped forward, holding my flashlight high. "We know what you are," I said, my voice steady. "You don't have to be a monster. We can understand you." The creature paused, its eyes narrowing as it regarded us. I could feel the tension in the air, a standoff between fear and understanding. As I stood before it, I felt a surge of empathy, a recognition that it was not just a creature of terror, but a being driven by instinct. In that moment something shifted. The chupacabra let out a low growl, but it didn't attack. Instead, it turned and retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the darkness. My friends and I stood in stunned silence, our hearts racing. "What just happened?" Jake asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "I think we reached an understanding," I replied, my heart pounding. In the days that followed, the sightings of the chupacabra dwindled. The fear that had gripped our town began to fade, replaced by a sense of relief. We had confronted the creature, and in doing so we had changed the narrative. As I look back on that summer, I realized that the chupacabra was more than just a monster. It was a reflection of our fears, our need to confront the unknown. In facing it, we had not only uncovered a legend but had also discovered something about ourselves. The chupacabra may have been a creature of fear, but it also taught us about empathy, understanding, and the power of facing our fears head-on. As the sun set over the Texas plains, I knew that we had emerged stronger, united by a shared experience that would bond us for years to come.